What's up, everybody? It is Matt from Electric All Wheel, and today we have the eCells 5-star 1500 watt rear hub 60 volt 20 amp hour e-bike. This thing is a monster. We've racked up the Wired Freedom right next to it because we're going to have to make a choice. And I wanted to take you through a racked review of the eCells 5-star, and then Jeremy is here and we're going to take him out for a ride. He's going to take the Wired Freedom and I'm going to take the eCells. All right, my man, you ready for this?
I'm ready for it.
And we are just going to take it out and show you what we're talking about, give you a glimpse of the ride as we walk through this rack review of the eCells 5-star in comparison to its market competitor. I am ecstatic to be on this bike and ready to do this review for you, and it's been a long time coming. I've spent a lot of time with these two bikes and I've written my notes and I have the iPad. It's ready to go, and I'm going to share with you those things that I wanted to bring to the audience to let you know this is how I would view it and this is how I would make my determination and pick between these two bikes. If you haven't already, give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. It is our primary, and if you're in the area, check out E-Bikes of Tampa Bay, Florida. Get in that Facebook group, make an event, and go for a ride with your friends. The weather is turning. I am now starting to have to think about lighting with this, so forgive the video quality if it's not up to stuff, but I promise you this is as authentic as it's gonna get. I paid for both of these bikes, so I am not under the gun to give you an opinion that is not mine. So keep that in mind as you watch this video. Let's just get to it. Okay, the primary focus of this video is the eCells 5-star, and we are reviewing it just to go through the components, but we have its counterbalance, the Wired Freedom, and it's here to show you what the market equivalent is putting out there so that you can understand what we're talking about. It's a full suspension 26x4 e-bike, and very first thing I need to tell you is that we have installed the HEB Allscape tires. These are the 26x4 HEB Allscape with silver lettering. They only have the one color for the lettering now, which we don't mind that at all. And we just want to say these things look great. They ride quiet, there's good traction, and we anticipate a long life out of these tires. And it's on both the eCells and the Wired Freedom. So we have equality in that. Very first thing I want to talk about is about the company and what you get when you buy the eCells. And there's a 2-year warranty that comes with this bike. And Dave Cleveland and the rest of the crew at eCells are very customer service oriented. And I know a lot of people are going to Facebook to get that first dip into feeling what is going to be their experience with the company. And there is a wide variety of comments and review. And that is because you will see that there is a play against one versus the other because of the striking similarities, but I assure you that these similarities are surface level and you've got to look a little bit deeper to really understand what you're getting after. One of the things that I love most about eCells is that you can actually get to Dave. You can call that man and he will speak to you on the phone. He's a character and he's somebody worth talking to if you are about e-bikes, because he will tell you everything that he can and all of the efforts put into putting this combination of e-bikes together. And I appreciate that. Not only that, when you call in and you get the call log, you get the option of picking who you need to speak to. And when you press that number on their voicemail or the call system, somebody picks up the phone. And I really, really, really like that. It is not forcing you into an email scenario, which we at Electric All Wheel, we deal with email. I have to deal with it because it's just me and we're running customer service out of email, and I use it so I can run the search function. But dadgum, if it's not nice to pick up the phone and call somebody, and Dave Cleveland will let you call him and he will talk to you. And that is very, very, very unique. So keep that in mind. Another thing that we are super impressed with eCells is the options package. Now you'll see that this bike has the gold rims, and that is an option that you can pick up when you go to purchase your bike. And that is not readily available across most of the direct-to-consumer purchases, especially with Wired. With Wired, it's you get those color schemes, and that's the end of it. They have broadened that selection, but it is a standard set selection of that. You don't get an option for the gold rims. And honestly, before they came out with the 2024 Plus Wired Freedom, there was no option for dual battery. But Dave Cleveland and the eCells crew now offers the optional package that includes the new front forks and that big old headlight, plus the 60-volt second battery on the rear rack. I know that Wired Freedom comes standard, and you might say, well, there's the price differential that you have to think about, but the add-on for that is the option for these, and one of those options as well is the ability to get a torque sensor controller for your eCells, and you can't get that anywhere else. I know that Juiced had it, and there are a bunch of other bikes that are now coming out. I think Velotric is offering this option, and I think that's programmable, but it is not the same when you're in this class. So if that is something that tips you off, you can go ahead and stop this video right now and pick up your eCells, because if you need option, the real options come from eCells. So the next thing I want to talk about is the design and build quality between the bikes. And when you look at them, seemingly they are the same, but in reality, there are striking differences between these bikes, and it's something you need to take note of. It's not something that perhaps you will notice if you're buying from the internet, but after you get riding the bike, if it's your first one, perhaps it will never bother you. But I've been on quite a few bikes, as all of you may know, so I'm starting to look at these finer details, and these are the things that I wanted to bring to your attention. First, it's the high-step full suspension frame. And the very first thing I want to tell you with that is you get the selection in sizing. It's not just one size. So Wired is going to provide to you one size option, but eCells, not only do you get the color options with the rims, not only do you get package selection and cadence and torque options, but you get size of the frame option for this bike, and that can't be beaten. The ability to really tailor it to your needs and wants is where it's at, so keep that in mind. They both have the D&M AO 8RC shock for the rear suspension, so you have similarity there. And what I want to say is that you're going to want to get the high pressure pump to get this thing dialed in to your body weight. Now, there's another thing that comes with this. One aspect that I loved when I got the bike is they delivered all of the product manuals to me. I got the paper manual for the shock, I got the manual for the bike, and I got the manual for, what else did I get the manual for? Oh, I got this send out. So I was able to go on the site, get the manual for the display, and then actually see all the parameters for the display when I needed them. And you can't get that from Wired. You've got to go onto YouTube and watch Citizen Cycle video as he puts out the display control parameters for these bikes. And so you can go ahead and take that for what it's worth. Gator also has the selection set and the videos for eCells on their website, and so you can keep that in mind. There is equivalence there, but that one-upmanship comes when you can actually get a hold of the manual and have the printed description of directions for changing the settings on the e-bike. In honor of Electric All Wheel and our logo colors and the color scheme for the business, red, gold rims, I'm a huge fan, right? I cannot get enough. This bike draws a lot of attention. When people see it, the first thing they say is, oh, wow, that's a really nice bike. Some people are like, oh, you should have gotten black. But heck no, this is Electric All Wheel. We like the red, and we are definitely loving these gold rims and the ability to have that option to pick them. What I did notice is that it wasn't readily available when I went to buy the bike, but what they did is they went out in the shop and they pulled together the package. And yes, this bike was used, but I still get the full warranty coverage, and they made the extra effort to give me what I wanted and get it in the mail as quickly as possible. It was shipped. I had it within 2 weeks because they took that extra effort to go check their inventory. They communicated with me, gave me the option and said, this is what it will be if we need to wait, but this is what we have and this is what we can offer you. And I said, let's do it. And I am not disappointed. So just keep that in mind as you go through your decision-making process. Red, gold rims, don't copy me, but I wouldn't blame you if you did. Now, when I'm looking at these bikes and I recognize that I am talking about accessory options, you can actually get a basket, a front basket for this bike, which you cannot pick up for the Wired Freedom because you can't even mount it on their frame. So if you're like me and you like carriage and you want to stow items, what I really care about is having my e-bike cover. And as you know, you've seen Jeremy and I on the Aerial Rider Kepler, and we'll go get pizza and beer typically on Saturday or Sunday. And man, if we don't get caught in the rain at least once or twice every summer, just it looks fine, everything's fine, and then Florida says, "Joke's on you. Here's some rain for you." And fortunately, I'm carrying the dual e-bike bike cover from Bike Case, and I put it in my front basket. So it's definitely something that I want to have, and I need a place to store that. And with the e-cells, I get the option because he actually took the time and put these finer details like the front basket mount. So we appreciate having that option on the frame. Is it doable with the Wired Freedom? Sure, but you're going to be doing some aftermarket augmentation and some very selective upgrades to get it done, rather than just having your bolt-on situation that you get with this frame. The bike is heavy, and there's no way around it. It's 94 pounds with the battery, but it's a comparable weight with the Wired Freedom, and anyone that's buying this bike is not worried about weight, they're worried about speed. It's a guarantee. Yes, sir. 40? Can I get 41? Yeah? 42 maybe? Uphill? Oh. Maybe if you're cool like me and you pick this color scheme, it's more about the color and the look and the flash. But after that, we all know it's about this motor. 1500 watts, we want to push right up into that 40-mile-an-hour setting. And the one thing that you must know is it's a hefty bike. So if you're worried about how it's going to be racked, if picking it up is going to be problematic, you need to keep that in mind. You're looking at about 100 pounds, plain and simple. So it's not a folding bike, so you're not going to be plunking it into your RV. You're not going to be dragging it up 3 flights of stairs, or maybe you are, right? Maybe you're creative and you've MacGyvered an airlift, but just keep in mind this bike is heavy. It's heavy. That's it. I did mention the basket mounts on the front of this frame, and another thing that, and this goes across a lot of brands of e-bikes, and I've had my hands on a ton of e-bikes, and in actuality, I picked up the Bike Case bottle cage strap adapters to help mount a second battery, because a lot of brands don't include this, and that is bottle cage mounts. Like, it's a no-brainer. And I think Dave told me it's no more than $1 or $2 for each one of the mounts, plus the screws when you're in manufacturing. And it's that attention to detail, that decision-making process when they are deciding what this bike is going to include. And he said, yes, this is a must. They put that extra expense in there, and then they kept the price comparable when the Wired Freedom was in its 2024 class selection. I understand that there's the 2024 Plus, and that maybe this review is a little bit old, but I don't care, because I needed to make sure, I needed to know for myself, and then once I did know, I wanted to bring it to you so that you knew what really mattered to me. The next one is the optional torque and cadence sensor. Now, I've been a cadence man through and through forever. I feel like I always wanted that because it gets that set amperage at each pads level, and it lets me know where I want to be. And my thought process was I would pedal into it, and that would allow me to match the cadence power and get into a pedal stroke and a sequence that was comfortable so I could get resistance from the PAS level, and that's what I've been used to. That's what we get with electrics, and that was, you know, one of my very first primaries, and then my very first kit bike, which was a specialized roll with a 500-watt rear hub, was Cadence as well. And I didn't really understand it. I've been on like the Electric Express, the 750, which is a really nice torque sensor, and still I was just like, I don't think that that's for me. But I got on this thing, and being a speed junkie that I am, I'm like, oh, it's no cadence sensor, so you know it's going to force me into a scenario. But the programming and the settings for the bike allow you to use throttle to get that speed that you want. So when you get up there in the plus 30 mile an hour range, you can get there with throttle, and it's like, okay, that's gratifying. But the one thing I loved the most was having the torque sensor installed, and when I'm up in those top speeds, suddenly it's my power, it is my assist, my pedaling that pushed me into that 38 to 40 mile an hour range right at the peak. And it was so satisfying to know that I was the one that was doing it. I was the one putting in that last bit of power that made this thing just the speed demon that I wanted to be. And if you're an exercise guy and you say, well, I ride an e-bike for exercise and that's what I want it for, well, guess what? Now you can have it at plus 30 miles an hour. Just make sure you wear a helmet. I've had to ingrain that, and we finally brought Jeremy over to the dark side of helmet wearing too, because we are moving into this class of e-bikes where it's just, we're going super fast. So torque and cadence sensor option is a must. That's on you to make your decision. I'm still a cadence guy, but dang it, if I don't really like having the option for torque sensor, and I really enjoyed making that YouTube short where Jeremy and I rode the bikes out on the causeway, and I was able to just pedal into, you know, the speed and the traffic with this bike. So torque and cadence, having the option, that is great. And once again, we appreciate the fact that it's there and I have the ability to choose. Now there's some highlights that I just wanted to mention. They have in the motor the patented nylon steel gear combo, which allows for a stronger durability for this motor. So you're not going to be stripping out the nylon gears, which are typically found in your geared rear hub motors. And that's essential with the power set for this 60-volt system on the e-cells. And that is definitely worth noting. Yes, it is available for other bikes, but it was the thought process to make sure and include it on the e-cells that I really appreciate. You do have full suspension. You have the ability to lock out on your RST guide front suspension, and then you have your D&M air shock on the rear, and then this rocker arm with its setup as well. And so that is quite nice too. And this will take us into a wobble conversation, which I'm not quite ready to have yet, but we will get there. I did mention that you have the option. There are two frame sizes. There's the 17-inch and the 19-inch. So 17 is standard, 19 is considered large. And of course, we went with large. I'm 6'2", and it fits quite nicely. At this size, you're going to consider these bikes large anyway, typically, but having the option and the ability to choose between, so it is a more determined set and fit for you selection, is quite nice. So we appreciate e-cells providing that as an option. It is IP65 rated, so you can get them wet. You're not going to be able to submerge it, but with the IP65, you're talking about the protection from dust, etc. And they are the Gillette connectors. I think these are J-plug Gillette connectors up on the dash, and then you have the standard reverse connection for the headlight. Most of the companies are using the aluminum frames, and it's the 6000 series aluminum. This bike is the 6061 series aluminum alloy frame with the double wall aluminum rims, these gold rims, which are badass. And then the bike itself has a 330-pound payload. That gives me just over 100 extra pounds to play with. I don't know that I would ever add that, but you know I have a penchant for dual batteries, so that will give me the room in the payload capacity to add that extra battery and maybe another one, but I think that might be pushing it a little too far. Now, I did mention the motor with the nylon steel gears, and this is the Hintok motor. It's a 1500 watt rear hub, 2400 watt peak power output, and it has 147 Newton meters of torque. These motors scream. And when you notice this is like a dead start on an uphill, and I like doing that just to prove it to myself. And also now that this thing has torque sensor, I like doing it just because it's like, oh, I am actually adding to the power, but it's not something that is vitally needed because this bike packs a punch anyway. Your charger is a 60 volt 3 amp charger, which is pretty standard, but eCells did take the extra measure of having a custom connector inside for this battery. It's a 3-pin, and that is a blessing and a curse. It means that you're going to have to go to eCells if your charger fails, but you definitely want to match up and then make sure that you're bringing equivalence to what the standards were that Dave put together for this bike. So it's not something that bothers me very much, especially in warranty and a 2-year warranty, and especially because I know that they are customer service oriented. Yes, the company does have to get parts, and yes, there can be a delay, but it's not something they're hiding from. So you guys keep that in mind. The controller is a 60 volt 40 amp controller, and you see it looks exposed. But one thing to note is that it's packed with thermal gel, and this thermal gel is for heat dissipation. Now, the aspect that we're looking at here is the thermal gel selection for this controller was meant to say that we recognize that at 60 volts and high speeds, if you're a speed junkie like this guy, then you know that you need to keep that controller safe. So making that selection and saying we're going to go the extra mile, just like these bottle cage mounts, to add thermal gel to the controller makes me much more secure in knowing that if I select eCells, I made a good decision. Both the Wired Freedom and the eCells have the KT display. The settings menu is about the same. The one difference you'll see is the logos upon startup. When there are variations, and eCells is prone to this because they offer the option for the torque sensor versus cadence sensor, which is not available for Wired Freedom, you will have variance in some of those settings, but rest assured that you will be able to get that. You can talk to that character Gator, you can talk to Dave, call him directly, or you just email eCells or call whoever you need to, and they will take care of it and get you set on the settings for your bike, whichever you need. Both e-bikes offer 5 PAS levels for their displays and their control set. So that's pretty standard across the industry. Nothing, crazy there. But you do have intensity level selects in the settings for both bikes, and you are able to temper that if it's just way too much for you. You get motor and power temperature selections. You have the option to monitor that on the eCells, and we appreciate that. Having the ability to be there and see it and know that if something's going down or the temperature is too high, you can stop your ride and make sure that you are minding the safety, and the ability to see if that's happening on the display is worthwhile. You've got your standard battery consumption status, so the bars on the bike. Now, they are both known to be a little finicky for battery status, but what you really want to do is just mind the voltage. If you understand the voltage range for a 60 volt, which will take you up to 67.3, I think, at full charge, and you understand the BMS shutoff and the controller shutoff voltage is the low end, yes, what will happen is as you ride, after you get past full charge, you're going to run into a curve that's going to drop off. And it does drop off faster, but this isn't unique to this bike. It's not unique to Wired. It's the way e-bikes work. Both the eCells and the Wired offer the half grip twist, and I'm going to tell you that I had a much better experience with finer control on the E-cells. Jeremy can attest to this. We went to the St. Pete Float Fleet and we rode out on these bikes, and when you're in a crowd, you need to have really, really fine control, especially over throttle, because at 94 pounds, it gets difficult to crank it up every time, especially if you're moving slowly. So I need to be able to feather that throttle and get in at a nice, consistent pace without jerking it into somebody. And that makes the ride a lot more easy when you're running slow speeds, with the option of bringing this thing up to plus 30 miles an hour. For the brakes, you have the 4-piston Tektro hydraulic brakes, and you have the 203 millimeter rotor up front and the 180 in the back. And you might say, well, why aren't they matching? Well, the reality is you really don't need the 203 in the rear, because most of your braking power, if you're using them simultaneously, is going to come from your front wheel. So don't worry too much about that. I'm positive that there was a lot of deliberation in making that selection between the disc size for front and rear, and then having that differentiation. Your crank arms are 170 millimeters, and then you have a 56 tooth chain ring with an 1134 freewheel in the back, giving you a high gear ratio of 5.09. And you know that I say anymore, I want a bike that's going to give me a gear ratio of 4+. And that lets me know that I can get into high teens, mid 20s and up and have resistance. And I appreciate having resistance, because I don't want to be ghost pedaling at high speeds. I want to at least look like I'm pedaling, especially if I'm on a trail. Of course, that brings me into the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. The original tires for both of these bikes, Kenda Crusade 26x4s, those are the 60 TPIs. These Allscapes are 30 TPI. The aftermarket price for the pair with tubes is about 140, and we will leave a link for these in the description below. We appreciate you utilizing all the links in the description below. It helps us keep this channel going and provides us with that little extra cash to supplement the ability to buy these and provide you an honest review and tell you about these bikes. So keep that in mind. Thank you. Thank you very much for using those links. So here's where we're going to get into the finer aspects. This is what I'm going to tell you. This is the pros selection for why you want to really consider what's going on with your 60 volt, 20 amp hour, 1500 watt rear hub e-bike selection. And very first thing is the rear rack and how these two rear racks are mounted. And you cannot beat what's going on with this E-cells and how this rear rack is mounted to the frame. Now, what you have with the Wired Freedom is the mount up front. Across the Facebook groups, you are seeing consistently that the rear rack is snapping the mounts on the Wired Freedom, and that's not something that's going to happen. You would have to crush the frame of the rear rack for this E-cells 5-star for it to break like that. And that speaks volumes to the attention to detail that comes when you get an E-cells. There's the pro of having the options for cadence and torque, but I don't need to beat that up anymore. Having the option is worthwhile, and that's worth money, even though it doesn't manifest itself into tangible items that are on the bike. The option to be there speaks volumes. One thing that E-cells does is they include the shipping in the pricing for the bikes. So when you look at the price that is offered on the website, that's the price you're going to pay. You're not going to see the tag on for shipping and be surprised by an extra few $100s. Now that practice is carried out by Wired, and then some of you might counter, well, they are now offering the dual battery option. Yes, they are, but that's it. Right? There's color option and dual battery, and that's the end. It's not even an option. It's just part of the standard feature set. It is an option with the 5-star, but when you go dual battery, you also get the new front forks and you get the light, and then you get that customer service on the backside that is going to help you get through your install and make sure that everything is set. I would say that the weight is a drawback just because it's a heavy bike, but in reality, like I said, if you're buying this bike, you're not really worried about the weight because you anticipate having that weight while riding. So is it a drawback? Sure, but it's not something that I'm going to worry about profusely because it's something I expected before I even went looking. With Wired's competitive dual battery setup, that is going to be your biggest decision point. But in reality, you have to acknowledge the quality differences between the bikes themselves. And 1, bottle cage mounts, 2, front basket mount, 3, rear rack. This thing and the way it is mounted makes so much difference in terms of long-term durability. Now, also, one thing that you'll note is that your fender. Now, on the Wired Freedom, the fender is cut off right in this area, but with E-Cells, they've recognized that it needed to cover all the way down to where the bottom of the rear of the frame comes out so that it will keep the controller protected. Now, the mounting place for both controllers is right here below the seat, below the rocker for the suspension, and right up next to your chain ring. And it's vulnerable to the splash from the rear wheel, especially when you're going through mud and water. And so they extended the fender down to protect the controller. And these aren't things that you're really looking at when you're on the internet trying to make a selection. And so that's why I wanted to highlight this for you. This is that attention to detail. In my opinion, both bikes can use a better seat. I like a lot of cushiness in my seat. Of course, they are dual suspension, so there is that. But I would want a much thicker, much cushier seat for the longer ranges possible with both e-bikes. Now you'll notice this extra mount here, and that is something that is not found on your Wired Freedom, and definitely attributable, especially if your shock is not set, to the wobble that is mostly experienced with your Wired Freedom. What you'll find is when you get into these components for the rear suspension, there is a lot more concern for the durability and the stability of this suspension. And you'll notice that there's an extra mount in between this that is only available on the E-Cells 5-star. When you look at the Wired Freedom, it is not there. It's actually an open mounting position, and you have to wonder, after all of the flack for the wobble that came out and the fact that Wired had to push out the Hellbender Visco 70 to alleviate these problems, Dave saved E-Cells from any of that by making this an addition right off the bat, making sure that this thing was fortified before it even got to your doorstep. Then we start looking at the controller mounts themselves. Now, yes, this controller is exposed, but it is packed with thermogel, which allows for some weatherproofing as well. And not only that, but you have the fenders protecting it, and it doesn't rattle. Now, the Wired Freedom, the controller is locked in that controller box right under the seat post. And so it's a casing that is in there, and so it traps that heat, and it's nowhere near the same. So this is open air with heat dissipation fins and the thermal gel. And so we really, really, really appreciate it. It doesn't look bad either. It doesn't look cheap. The mount for the controller is integrated into the frame, so you know that it too was part of that attention to detail. So this is another aspect that Brad really liked at Tarpon Tom's. He said that he would much prefer having the Velcro on the motor cable in the event that you got caught with a flat. The ability to restrap this without having to cut zip ties and carry extra zip ties is really, really nice. And I didn't even think about it at first. When I saw it, I was like, that feels awkward, but it's not. It's actually forward thinking in the repair set. If you're out there and you need to get this wheel off and then get it back into working status, and you don't have zip ties. So we really appreciate the fact that there is this Velcro strap holding the motor cable so you can do that. That is not something that is available on the Wired Freedom. It is the traditional zip tie situation, as you can see. Both bikes offer the headlight and rear tail light option. It turns on with holding, I think the Wired Freedom may have a different controlling, but it's holding the up PAS selection button for a duration, and then it'll turn on the light. It does look like the Wired Freedom headlight is a little bit bigger, but I actually took them out, and what you get in the light path at night, I was satisfied with the e-cells, and it does have the typical Gillette connection, so you can get an aftermarket light with an adapter that will just plug in here. And also, if you're feeling it, just go ahead and get that 7-inch with the dual battery package that is offered. You can't find it on the website. You have to call in to e-cells to get that package, but like I said, they answer the phone. Another thing I want to mention is safety, and what you'll notice with the e-cells 5-star is that these front forks, the wheels on the front forks on the e-cells are actually done with nuts, right? It does not have the quick release lever, which honestly at the speeds that these bikes can go is a safety hazard. And that quick release is found on the Wired Freedom. And so I appreciate that that was removed, understanding that safety is paramount. So it's vital that this thing be tightened down appropriately. And so you have that variance between the Wired Freedom and the e-cells. So I appreciate, again, that attention to detail. Now, I did mention that there is the option. Now, what's going to happen is the next generation of these bikes is going to be coming out, and then some of this stuff will go to the wayside. But with this review, hopefully you'll understand what e-cells will be bringing to the forefront and what they think about before they actually come out with their bikes. And the fact that they give the option for the second battery is great. Comes with the optional, it's like a 7-inch headlight, and then the dual crown forks, which are just beefy as hell. And it really sets this bike apart once you get it on. And I can't wait to do that add-on for this one. We haven't gotten there yet. This is our first foray into the realm of 60 volts with e-cells, and we're super happy about it. Can't wait to do it again and see where e-cells goes with their product line. But that's definitely something worth mentioning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these things off the rack. Jeremy is going to take the Wired Freedom. I am going to take the e-cells, and then we'll come back and close out this video and let you know, which I'm pretty sure you already know, where we're leaning and which one is going to find a home here at Electric All Wheel. Like your bike? All right, my man, you ready for this?
I'm ready for it.
I'm super stoked to be on the e-cells. I just really like the color combination. For me, the gold rims gets it done. I know that Wired is a comparable bike, but I fully anticipate whooping your ass, no offense.
I'm gonna give it a chance. They're comparable. It's all on the rider. It's all on the rider.
If not anything else, I'm just gonna look flashy doing it. What do you say? Let's take it around the street and go get that speed test off of that radar gun in Ozona. Yeah? All right, the minute we hit that intersection and we go left, we'll try and let whatever cars go through and then just book it.
Yeah.
Right? And then we'll see what we got. All right, let's let him go. Left turn, and then we're gonna take off. It's my favorite part. Slow down, 34, 35, that one's matching, and we'll see what GPS shows. Jeremy's right here with me.
I think the sign said it all.
Slow down?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I think is gonna happen is that right, we'll kind of be equally matched as we roll through.
Okay.
And then right when we reach the peak, I'll just be able to kill it with the torque sensor and adding that extra bit.
We'll see.
Yep, that went about as predicted. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah?
It's fast.
Yeah.
It's fast. I'll give her credit.
So this thing's not working, just beware.
Okay.
See that car, yeah?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Let's take it into the street.
Right now?
Yep. Yes, sir. 40. Can I get 41? Yeah. 42 maybe? Uphill? Oh, that's a workout. Don't look down. All right, let's even up. Let's do a rolling start.
Okay.
Okay, so from here, we're like 3, 2, 1, then full throttle this thing,
Okay.
and then we'll just go first to the state park win. You ready?
One.
Let's even up front end. 3, 2, 1, go. We're edging out a little lean. I weigh more than you, bro. I'm not even pedaling yet, so there'll be that. It's still holding. You see, we lose like, what, 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour up and over the crest of the bridge. And this is where we can get it. Come in. Solid win. Solid win
Hey.
for the E-Cells.
None wrong with silver.
5-star says. They're gonna give me to slow down again? Oh, no. Let's see here. No wobble. No wobble, no wobble, no wobble. We like that. Well, there you have it. We've taken these two e-bikes for a ride. I got Jeremy in here for the closeout. He's so comfortable being on video. He said, I have to be in it. Mostly, I just need him here as witness, right?
Yeah.
You saw it.
I saw it.
You saw it.
I saw
We're
it.
going to do this math real quick, and I'm going to show you, or I'm going to give you the range calculations for both bikes based on the Mica toll constant, and then we're going to get to the final judgment.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, fine. Okay. 60-volt battery. So each of these batteries is 20 amp hours. So 20 amp hours times 60 volts, 1,200 watt hours. We're going to divide that by 25. And 25 is the Mica toll constant, which says it's 25 watt hours per mile ridden at 20 miles an hour, throttle only. Of course, that was, yeah.
We gave it a little bit of pedaling. You have to.
A little bit, right? I feel like it was probably 30 miles an hour plus the entire ride.
What was necessary?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Necessary? 48 miles. Typically, I'd be all about the dual battery. I'd tell you everything there is, but 48 miles at 20 miles an hour on your standard 60 volt, 20 amp hour e-bike. That's eCells 5-star and the Wired Freedom. Now let's just get to the business.
Yeah.
With the 5-star, even at my increased weight versus yours, and I'm a bigger sail, right? Standing up, doing the thing, I was able to pull away from you.
You were.
You, yeah?
Yeah, you were. Yeah,
it happened.
It
right?
happened.
Even throttle only. Nothing fantastic, nothing magical. It's just the same battery, the same motor with the eCells and the way this thing is set up and what's going on with this bike. It did the business.
It did. I have to admit, man, it's impressive. And this is, I won't sleep on it, but eCells.
Yeah, eCells. It has been a long time coming for me to put together this video and want to put this out. Both of these bikes are on the charger now. We just got back. We had our pizza and beer from Fairway. So I just want to hear it again, just to make me feel better.
You won today.
It was faster.
It's faster. It's superior.
How much do you weigh?
Weigh 218.
Yes, sir.
So,
There's one bike out of these two that's going to stay in the electric all-wheel stable, and it's this one. This thing is legit. I'm super happy with it. The braking, the battery, the controller, the select accessory add-ons for the frame, the bottle cage mounts, the front rack, the way the cable for the motor is velcroed to the rear of the frame rather than being strapped with the zip ties. The way the programming is in the controller, the option for cadence versus torque sensor, which I know I think you like cadence too. I like it, but I have to admit I was blown away by the whole thing. The stability of it. I did ride with the Wired Freedom, and I did have to go through the motions with Wired to alleviate the wobble on the Freedom, and they ended up sending out the Hellbender. Okay. And you rode it. There was no wobble. It took care of the problem.
Right.
Fact is, none of that had to take place with the eCells 5-star. How much more do I need to say? When you look at the rear rack and the way that thing mounts on there, and knowing full well that there are plenty of posts in the Facebook group showing these rear racks breaking off, the mounts for the Freedom just snapping off of the frame, and people are having to go to welders that can do aluminum and then put the mount back on so that they can have their existing rear rack. Like, I'm leaning real hard to this bike. Now, we were talking earlier, and you didn't see on the website how you could get the gold rims.
Yeah, no, I looked for it. I was looking for it. How did he find this? Where did he find this? And
well, so in the beginning of the video, I mentioned, right, you have to call them, but the thing is they will answer, right? They're going to answer your phone call, and when you do that, when you make the custom order, what you need to know is it's available. You can do this. You give them a call, tell them what you want, and they'll hook you up. And that includes their dual battery package. And if anybody wants dual battery, it's this guy. I want dual batteries. So they got the dual crown forks, the 7-inch light, the extra rear rack battery. They give you the rear rack mount, and it is a premium package. You're going to have to call eCells for it. We also know that wired, that it comes standard now. It's just part of it. Yep. But there is no choice in the matter. You get color choice, and then you get the dual battery, and that's the thing. But with eCells, you get a lot of choice. Not only that, but they have taken the time to make sure that those aspects for longevity, when you've had the bike for a while and you wish it had a thing, eCells has gone through it, and that's what I appreciate. So I have made my decision. It's eCells or bust when it comes to the 1500 watt, what is it, Hentach? Yes, Hentach rear hub motor with that 60 volt controller. I'm all about the 5-star, and it gets my blessing. Dave Cleveland, you are right. Thank you very much for humoring me. I'm super glad that I was able to purchase these bikes and get it out. He made sure that I got this. This bike was used when I received it. I accepted it used. I knew what I was getting, and I'm still pleased as punch. And I really appreciate you riding out with me today. Yeah, it was an unbelievable situation. What would I say about them both? Both of them need a seat that is a little more cushy on the butt. Right? Cushy on the tushy? Is that? Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't want anybody quoting me on that. Please don't do that. The mileage is good, and having the option, I'm going to dual battery every damn thing I possibly can.
Right.
So that's the deal. But the reality is, when it comes stock and it's the factory bike and you're looking for what's what, this is the one. Yes, Wired's out there. Yes, eCells has to sometimes order parts, and it's going to take a minute. But rest assured, this is not some singular problem just for eCells. It's universal, and they're managing it the best way they can, and they're front-facing. He owns it. He will speak to you. Customer service will speak to you, and they will answer the phone when you need them to. Even if it's not exactly the answer you want right then and there, they're going to make it right, and I appreciate that from any company.
Right.
Right.
Get down with that.
What more can you ask for?
Yep.
Jeremy says his favorite color is blue.
It is. Red. Candy apple. Gold rims.
Does it look good?
It looks great. It looks great.
Yeah, Brad. This looks good. This looks really good. Look at the color combination on this. It looks good. That's all I have to say about it. If you're in the market for this style of bike, eCells is where you want to go. That's where I'm going to point you to. Wired Freedom is a good bike. It's, on superficial, on the surface, it's going to look that way. And if it's available, I'm going to tell you, go ahead and do it. But the reality is, if you're asking me which one over the long term you want to pick up and ride and have for your own personal e-bike, it's this one. If you haven't already, give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. It is our primary, and if you're in the area, check out
Tampa Bay e-bikes.
E-Bikes of Tampa Bay.
E-Bikes of Tampa Bay. I'm sorry.
Get in that Facebook group, make an event, and go for a ride with your friends. I can't wait to do this again. We have the Wired Cruiser. I'm gonna try and get a hold of.
That's next.
Yeah.
And we're doing that next.
Yeah. You liked riding that
Absolutely.
thing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I'm coming for the Cruiser equivalent. So let's get to it. I really appreciate this bike. I really appreciate you talking me through it. I appreciate what Wired did for us in terms of honoring customer service and getting us through the wobble, but didn't have that problem here. And I really love riding this bike, and you saw me whoop his butt. So that's the end of that.
All right.
We'll talk to you next time.
Hey.